find you in the mystery, in oceans deep. My faith will stand, and I will call upon your name, and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours. You are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your sovereign hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you've never failed, and you won't start now. So I will call upon your name, and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours. You are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me, and take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. I will call upon your name, keep my eyes above the waves. My soul will rest in your embrace. I am yours, and you are mine.
Woo! That was a vibe. In absolutely deed. Could have done the 8-minute version, I guess. 9-minute version, I guess. Ah. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Bible from the beginning. DarthHideous. That's me. Bible. That's the holy word of God. Uh, Welcome back. That's all of you. Div and Cat. Two of my absolute most favoriteest people of all. It is absolutely wonderful to see you both. I started a little early tonight because I got 13 chapters to do instead of 12 like I had yesterday, and that's a lot. And I don't know, it got kind of late last night. I didn't want it to get obscenely late, be doing this at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I figured if I start a half hour early, I might be able to finish on time. But man, there are so many kings. I don't even know who's ruling currently in Israel or Judah at this point. And I know that somehow, like, Edom and Aram got involved. Like everything is kind of absolute chaos right now. Ugh. But we are halfway through the book Second Kings, and we're gonna finish it tonight. uh, this is not fair. I'm just gonna say that. Uh, Bible from the beginning, Second Kings, chapter 13. Jehoahaz. That's the first word they give me, Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, began to rule over Israel in the 23rd year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 17 years, but he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, continuing the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. So the Lord was, as to be expected at this point, very angry with Israel, and he allowed King Hazael of Aram and his son Ben-Hadad to defeat them repeatedly. Then Jehoahaz prayed for the Lord's help, and the Lord heard his prayer. For he could see how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. So the Lord provided page stick. This is terrible. Someone to rescue the Israelites from the tyranny of the Arameans. Then Israel lived in safety again as they had in former days. Yet they seem to keep repeating this over and over again. But they continued to sin. Oh, that's right. Following the evil example of Jeroboam, they also allowed the Asherah pole in Samaria to remain standing. These two things are not unrelated. Finally, Jehoahaz's army was reduced to 50 charioteers, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers. The king of Aram had killed the others, trampling them like dust under his feet. Y'all are about to go extinct. The rest of the events in Jehoahaz's reign, everything he did, and the extent of his power, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoahaz died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son Jehoash became the next king. Like, how many ways can you mispronounce Josh at this point? Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, began to rule over Israel in the 37th year of King Joash's reign in Judah. These Judean kings, they tend to last a lot longer than the Israelite kings. He reigned in Samaria 16 years. But he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. It's almost like we're just going to keep doing this over and over again. The rest of the events in Jehoahash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of his power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoash died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Then his son Jeroboam II became the next king. Oh, isn't that fitting? When Elisha was in his last illness, so he gon' get the dead, King Jehoash of Israel visited him and wept over him. My father, I see the chariots and the charioteers of Israel, he cried. Elisha told him, get a bow and some arrows. And the king did as he was told. Elisha told him, put your hands, put your hand on the bow, and Elisha laid his own hands on the king's hands. Ooh, you're touching the king. I think that's illegal in most places. Don't touch the king, yo. Then he commanded, open that eastern window, and he opened it. Then he said, shoot. So he shot an arrow. Elisha proclaimed, this is the Lord's arrow, an arrow of victory over Aram. For you will completely conquer the Arameans at Aphek. Then he said, now pick up the other arrows and strike them against the ground. So the king picked them up and struck the ground 3 times. But the man of God was angry with him. You should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times, he exclaimed. Then you would have beaten Aram until it was entirely destroyed. Now you will be victorious only 3 times. So you better get that shit done in, like, you better get it done now. Then Elisha died and was buried. Groups of Moabite raiders used to invade the land each spring. Once, when some Israelites were burying a man, they spied a band of these raiders. So they hastily threw the corpse into the tomb of Elisha and fled. But as soon as the body touched Elisha's bones, the dead man revived and jumped to his feet. Awkward. King Hazael of Aram had oppressed Israel during the entire reign of King Jehoahaz. But the Lord was gracious and merciful to the people of Israel, and they were not totally destroyed. He pitied them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to this day he still has not completely destroyed them or banished them from his presence. We know. We know. King Hazael of Aram died, and his son Ben-Hadad became the next king. Then Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, the towns that had been taken from Jehoahash's father, Jehoahaz. Jehoash defeated Ben-Hadad on 3 occasions, and he recovered the Israelite towns. Amaziah, son of Joash, began to rule. Oh, wait. Chapter 14, I missed that completely. We're going to start with Amaziah in Judah. In the 2nd year of the reign of King Jehoash of Israel, Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother was Jehoadin from Jerusalem. Amaziah did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, but not like his ancestor David. Oh, another one of these, huh? Instead, he followed the example of his father Joash. Amaziah did not destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. I mean, I've been saying it for like the longest time. Like, you got explicit instructions from the Lord about that. He didn't mince words or give you a like you figure it out type of parable. He's like, hey, fucking no. Just absolutely not under any circumstances. Well, here we go. When Amaziah was well established as king, he executed the officials who had assassinated his father. However, he did not kill the children of the assassins. You always got to kill all the kids, too. For he obeyed the command of the Lord as written by Moses in the book of the law. Parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor children for the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. Amaziah also killed 10,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. He conquered Salah and changed its name to Joktheel, as it is called to this day. And by this day, I mean a day way in the past, because I don't think they call it Joktheel anymore. One day, Amaziah sent messengers with this challenge to Israel's king Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz and the grandson of Jehu. Come and meet me in battle. But King Jehoash of Israel replied to King Amaziah of Judah with this story. Out in the Lebanon mountains, a thistle sent a message to a mighty cedar tree. Give your daughter in marriage to my son. But just then a wild animal of Lebanon came by and stepped on the thistle, crushing it. Oh, that did not go where I thought that was gonna go. You have indeed defeated Edom, and you are proud of it. But be content with your victory and stay home. Why stir up trouble that will only bring disaster on you and the people of Judah? That is like a very polite and gentle way of saying, oh, you think you can fuck with me? Oh, don't. I would not recommend that. But Amaziah refused to listen. So King Jehoash of Israel mobilized his army against King Amaziah of Judah. The two armies drew up their battle lines at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by the army of Israel, and its army scattered and fled for home. King Jehoash of Israel captured Judah's king Amaziah, son of Joash, and the grandson of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then he marched to Jerusalem, where he demolished 600 feet of Jerusalem's wall, from Ephraim Gate to the Corner Gate. He carried off all the gold and silver and all the articles from the temple of the Lord. Oh, disrespectful. He also seized the treasures from the royal palace along with hostages, and then he returned to Samaria. The rest of the events of Jehoash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of his power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoash died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and his son Jeroboam too became the next king. I could have swore we already done with that. King Amaziah of Judah lived for 15 years after the king of Jehoash of Israel. The rest of the events in Amaziah's reign are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. I mean, I'm pretty sure you don't live there. I'm pretty sure you do not live there. But what a great place to have a battle, right? There was a conspiracy against Amaziah's life in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish but his enemies sent assassins after him, and they killed him there. Of course, ran him down. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. They brought his body back to Jerusalem on a horse, and he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. All the people of Judah had crowned Amaziah's 16-year-old son Uzziah as king in place of his father. After his father's death, Uzziah rebuilt the town of Elath and restored it to Judah. Just random factoid. I'm sure it's absolutely relevant. Jeroboam II, the son of Jehoash, began to rule over Israel in the 15th year of King Amaziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 41 years. That's how old I am. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. This doesn't surprise me. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit because, well, who taught him not to commit those sins? It wasn't his father. Jeroboam II recovered the territories of Israel between Lebo Hamath and the Dead Sea, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had promised through Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet from Gath Hepher. For the Lord saw the bitter suffering of everyone in Israel, and that there was no one in Israel, slave or free, to help them. And because the Lord had not said he would blot out the name of Israel completely, he used Jeroboam II, the son of Jehoash, to save them. The rest of the events in the reign of Jeroboam II and everything he did, including the extent of his powers, his wars, and how he recovered for Israel both Damascus and Hamath, which had belonged to Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jeroboam II died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Then his son, Zechariah, became the next king. Uzziah, son of Amaziah, began to rule over Judah in the 27th year of the reign of the king Jeroboam II of Israel. He was 16, boy king, so great, when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 52 years. That's got to be a record for these kings based on what I've read so far. 52 years is a long may he reign. His mother was Jecoliah from Jerusalem. Also, not sure the relevance. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, just as his father Amaziah had done, but he did not destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. The Lord struck the king with leprosy, which lasted until the day he died. He lived in isolation in a separate house. The king's son Jotham was put in charge of the royal palace, and he governed the people of the land. The rest of the events in Uzziah's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. When Uzziah died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David, and his son Jotham became king. I mean, pretty much he was already functioning as king, acting king, Act like a king. I have leprosy. They can't look at me. I am disfigured. You go be in charge, boy. Zechariah, son of Jeroboam II, began to rule over Israel in the 38th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 6 months. Remember when I said that last one was a record? 52 years? 6 months might be a record as well. Zechariah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, as his ancestors had done. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam son of Nebat had led Israel to commit. Then Shallum son of Jabesh conspired against Zechariah, assassinating him in public, and became the next king. The rest of the events in Zechariah's incredibly short reign are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. So the Lord's message to Jehu came true. Your descendants will be kings of Israel down to the fourth generation. Yeah, but not after that. You had not earned any additional days. Sorry. Shallum, son of Jabesh, began to rule over Israel in the 39th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah, because we had that lovely 6-month reign for Zechariah. Shallum reigned in Samaria only a month. Never mind, new record. Then Menahem, son of Gadi, went to Samaria from Tirzah and assassinated him. And he became the next king. So we're doing this now. Rapid succession. This is why when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. The rest of the events in Shallum's reign, including his conspiracy, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. Probably, literally, the only thing that's in there. At that time, Menahem destroyed the town of Tappuah and all the surrounding countryside as far as Tirzah because its citizens refused to surrender the town. He killed the entire population and ripped open the pregnant women. That was graphic and unnecessary. Both for him to do that and for whoever recorded this to tell me about it. Menahem, son of Gadi, began to rule over Israel in the 39th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. So during this 39th year, Israel has had 3 king changes. He reigned in Samaria 10 years. Okay, so getting a little bit of establishment here. But Menahem did what was evil in the Lord's sight. I mean, you came to the throne by assassination, bro. Like, you started off bad. During his entire reign, he refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam son of Nebat had led Israel to commit. Then, King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria invaded the land. But Menahem paid him 37 tons of silver to gain his support in tightening his grip on royal power. Menahem extorted the money from the rich of Israel, demanding that each of them pay 50 pieces of silver to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned from attacking Israel and did not stay in the land. Bitch! He paid him off like a sucker. The rest of the events in Menahem's reign recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Menahem died, his son Pekahiah became the next king. It's Pekahiah. This sounds almost Native American. Son of Menahem, began to rule over Israel in the 50th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah, King Uzziah the absent. He reigned in Samaria 2 years. But Pekahiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam son of Nebat had led Israel to commit. Then Pekah, son of Remaliah, the commander of Pekahiah's army, conspired against him. With 50 men from Gilead, Pekah assassinated the king, along with Argob and Ariah in the citadel of the. Who are they? In the citadel of the palace at Samaria, and Pekah reigned in his place. The rest of the events in Pekahiah's reign and everything he did recorded book history Kings Israel. Pekah, son of Remaliah, began to rule over Israel in the 52nd year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. So during his 52-year reign, Israel has seen like 6 kings now, I think, or at least at least 5, but it feels like that's the 6th one so far. He reigned in Samaria 20 years, but Pekah did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sins Jeroboam, son of Nebat, led Israel to commit. Man, they're still committing the same sins many, many kings later. You would think that they would, like, get that together or something, figure that one out. During Pekah's reign, King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria attacked Israel again, and he captured the towns of Ijon, Abel Beth Makkah, Genoa, Kadesh, and Hazor. He also conquered the regions of Gilead, Galilee, and all of Naphtali. He took the people to Assyria as captives. Then Hoshea, son of Elah, conspired against Pekah and assassinated him. He began to rule over Israel in the 20th year of Jotham, son of Uzziah. The rest of the events in Pekah's reign and everything he did recorded book history Kings Israel. Jotham, son of Uzziah, began to the 2nd year of King Pekah's reign in Israel. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. His mother was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. Jotham did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight. He did everything his father Uzziah had done, so stayed inside. But he didn't destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifice and burned incense there, and that still pissed the Lord off. He rebuilt the upper gate of the temple of the Lord. Interesting factoid. The rest of the events in Jotham's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of history, Kings of Judah. In those days, the Lord began to send King Rezin. Rezin. Hi, Puff. Sorry I started early and then was late, but this is a lot of chapters and they're pretty long, so. Good to see you, Puff. In those days, the Lord began to send King Rezin of Aram and King Pekah of Israel to attack Judah. When Jotham died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David, and his son Ahaz became the next king. We are just rolling right through these kings. It doesn't seem that too many of them last very long, and it doesn't seem that too many of them do too much. Like David had a cool reign. It got like a whole page and a half. I guess you got to be literally King David to to get a page in here. Chapter 16. Ahaz, son of Jotham, began to rule over Judah in the 17th year of King Pekah's reign in Israel. Yeah, that's why I started a little early tonight because I was actually really tired at the end of the stream last night. And I thought I felt like I was falling asleep trying to get through the last chapters. I was like, if I start a half hour early, I might be able to get through all of these and not be sleeping by the end of it. But we'll see how it goes. So far, we've only gotten through 3. And we've been here for 40 minutes. Ugh. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 16 years. He did not do what was pleasing in the sight of the Lord his God, as his ancestor David had done. Instead, he followed the example of the kings of Israel, even sacrificing his own son in the fire. Oh, that is extremely detestable before the Lord. Don't burn your kids alive. God's like, what the fuck? I didn't even think I had to write that down for you. But you guys are stupid. Oh, you're so stupid. Stupid and wicked and evil. Ugh, gross. In this way, he followed the detestable practices of the pagan nations the Lord had driven from the land ahead of the Israelites. He offered sacrifices and burned incense at the pagan shrines and on the hills and under every green tree. Then King Rezin of Aram and King Pekah of Israel came up to attack Jerusalem. No shit, God's probably like, I'm going to kick this guy's ass. They besieged Ahaz, but they could not conquer him. At that time, the king of Edom recovered the town of Elath for Edom. He drove out the people of Judah and sent Edomites to live there, as they do to this day. King Ahaz sent messengers to King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria with this message: I am your servant and your vassal. Come up and rescue me from the attacking armies of Aram and Israel. Then Ahaz took the silver and gold from the temple of the Lord and the palace treasury and sent it as a payment to the Assyrian king. So the king of Assyria attacked the Aramaean capital of Damascus and led its population away as captives, resettling them in Kir. He also killed King Rezin. Man, he smoked Rezin. I knew it was going to come at some point. I knew Rezin was going to get smoked at some point. I think it's Rezin, but it's spelled Rezin, and Rezin is just, if even if it's wrong, it had to happen. King Ahaz then went to Damascus to meet with King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria. While he was there, he took special note of the altar. Then he sent a model of the altar to Uriah the priest, along with its design in full detail. Uriah followed the king's instructions and built an altar just like it. And it was ready before the king returned from Damascus. When the king returned, he inspected the altar and made offerings on it. He presented a burnt offering and a grain offering. He poured out a liquid offering, and he sprinkled the blood of the peace offering on the altar. Oh, this guy did his homework on the altar. Then King Ahaz removed the old bronze altar from its place in front of the Lord's temple, between the entrance and the new altar, and placed it on the north side of the new altar. He told Uriah the priest, use the new altar for the morning sacrifices of burnt offering, the evening grain offering, and the king's burnt offering and grain offering, and the burnt offerings of all the people, as well as their grain offerings and liquid offerings. Sprinkle the blood from all the burnt offerings and sacrifices on the new altar. The bronze altar will be for my personal use only. Uriah the priest did just as King Ahaz commanded him. Then the king removed the side panels and basins from the portable water carts. He also removed the great bronze basin called the sea from the backs of the bronze oxen and placed it on the stone pavement. In deference to the king of Assyria, he also removed the canopy that had been constructed inside the palace for use on the Sabbath day. I don't think that was a good idea. That was probably a fucking terrible idea. As well as the king's outer entrance to the temple of the Lord. King Aha is really looking for like a gold medal in really bad decision making, I think. The rest of the events of Ahaz's reign and everything he did, including all the other stupid stuff, recorded book History Kings Judah. When Ahaz died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. Then his son Hezekiah became the next king. Chapter 17. My oh my, how the kings continue to change, yet the kings all stay the same. Isn't it wonderful? Chapter 17. Hoshea, son of Elah, began to rule over Israel in the 12th year of King Ahaz's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 9 years. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, but not to the same extent as the kings of Israel who ruled before him. Wait a minute, there's an extent to evil in the Lord's sight? We'll talk about that later. King Shalmaneser of Assyria attacked King Hoshea, so King Hoshea was forced to pay heavy tribute to Assyria. Why don't you just talk to the Lord and then go kick his ass? But Hoshea stopped paying the annual tribute and conspired against the king of Assyria by asking King So of Egypt, So, you want to kill a king with me? To help him shake free of Assyria's power. When the king of Assyria discovered this treachery, he seized Hoshea and put him into prison. Then the king of Assyria invaded the entire land, and for 3 years he besieged the city of Samaria. Finally, in the 9th year of King Hoshea's reign, from prison, Samaria fell, and the people of Israel were exiled to Assyria. They were settled in colonies in Halah, along the banks of the Habor River in Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. This disaster came upon the people of Israel because they worshipped other gods. They sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them safely out of Egypt and had rescued them from the power of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. They had followed the practices of the pagan nations the Lord had driven from the land ahead of them, as well as the practices of the kings of Israel, the practices the kings of Israel had introduced for their own sins. The people of Israel had also secretly done many things that were not pleasing to the Lord their God. They built pagan shrines for themselves in all their towns, from the smallest outpost to the largest walled city. They set up sacred pillars and Asherah poles at the top of every hill and under every green tree. They offered sacrifices on all the hilltops, just like the nations the Lord had driven from the land ahead of them. So the people of Israel had done many evil things, arousing the Lord's anger. Yes, they worshipped idols, despite the Lord's specific and repeated warnings. Specific and repeated warnings. Hold on. What does that say? Oh, yeah. Specific and repeated warnings. I have read these warnings probably 55 times. He probably told them even more times than it was written down here. Again and again, the Lord had sent his prophets and seers to warn both Israel and Judah, turn from all your evil ways, obey my commands and decrees, the entire law that I commanded your ancestors obey, and that I gave you through my servants, the prophets. But the Israelites would not listen. They were as stubborn as their ancestors who had refused to believe in the Lord their God. They rejected his decrees and the covenant he had made with their ancestors. And they despised all his warnings. They worshipped worthless idols, so they became worthless themselves. They followed the example of the nations around them, disobeying the Lord's command not to imitate them. They rejected all the commands of the Lord their God and made 2 calves from metal. They set up an Asherah pole, and they worshiped Baal and all the forces of heaven. They even sacrificed their own sons and daughters on the fire. Again with this shit! What is wrong with you people? They consulted fortune tellers and practiced sorcery and sold themselves to evil, arousing the Lord's anger. Because the Lord was very angry with Israel, he swept them away from his presence. Only the tribe of Judah remained in the land. But even the people of Judah refused to obey the commands of the Lord their God, for they followed the evil practices that Israel had introduced. The Lord rejected all the descendants of Israel. He punished them by handing them over to their attackers until he banished Israel from his presence. For when the Lord tore Israel away from the kingdom of David, they chose Jeroboam, son of Nebat, as their king. But Jeroboam drew Israel away from following the Lord and made them commit great sin. And the people of Israel persisted in all the evil ways of Jeroboam. They did not turn from these sins until the Lord finally swept them away from his presence, just as all his prophets had warned. Not some, just all of them. So, Israel was exiled from their land to Assyria, where they remain to this day. The king of Assyria transported groups of people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and resettled them in the towns of Samaria, replacing the people of Israel. They took possession of Samaria and lived in its towns, but since these foreign settlers did not worship the Lord when they first arrived, the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. I mean, that's lions, you know. They'll kill some of you, I guess. So a message was sent to the king of Assyria. The people you have sent to live in the towns of Samaria do not know the religious customs of the God of the land. He has sent lions among them to destroy them because they have not worshipped him correctly. The king of Assyria then commanded, "Send one of the exiled priests back to Samaria. Let him live there and teach the new residents the religious customs of the God of the land." So one of the priests who had been exiled from Samaria returned to Bethel and taught the new residents how to worship the Lord. And I bet you the Assyrians probably worshiped the Lord better and more accurately than the Israelites seem to manage to do. But these various groups of foreigners also continued to worship their own gods. Never mind, I was wrong. In town after town where they lived, they placed their idols at the pagan shrines that the people of Samaria had built. Well, I mean, they see the shrines there and they're just like, what are we supposed to do with these shrines? Oh, let's just worship our gods here. What's up, down? Those from Babylon worshipped idols of their god Succoth-Benoth. Those from Cutha worshipped their god Nergal, and those from Hamath worshipped Ashima. The Avites worshipped their gods Nibhaz and Tartak, and the people from Sepharvaim even burned their own children as sacrifices to their gods Adramelech and Anamelech. These new residents worshipped the Lord, but they had also appointed from among themselves all sorts of people as priests to offer sacrifices at their places of worship. And though they worshipped the Lord, they continued to follow their own gods according to the religious customs from the nations which they came. And this is still ongoing today. They continue to follow their former practices instead of truly worshiping the Lord and obeying the decrees, regulations, instructions, and commands he gave to the descendants of Jacob, whose name he changed to Israel. For the Lord had made a covenant with the descendants of Jacob and commanded them, "Do not worship any other gods or bow to them, but worship only the Lord who brought you out of Egypt with great strength and powerful arm. Bow down to him alone and offer sacrifices only to him. Be careful at all times to obey the decrees, regulations, instructions, and commands that he wrote for you. You must not worship other gods. You must worship only the Lord your God. He is the one who will rescue you from all your enemies. And you will be worthless if you worship those worthless gods. You worthless God worshipping shitweasel. But the people wouldn't listen, and they continued to follow their former practices. So while these new residents worshipped the Lord, they also worshipped their idols, and to this day their descendants do the same. I think I know a shitload of people like that, actually. They worship the Lord, like, with their mouth and with their actions. They go to church, they claim Jesus Christ. But they worship their idols probably more than they worship the Lord. In fact, if I had to really be super honest about it, I mean, I think I spend more screen time than I spend prayer time, so that should just be case against me number one. I feel like we all have. That's probably the hardest one. It's the serving two masters argument. But hey, the Lord knows we ain't perfect, 'cause if we were, He wouldn't have had to send Jesus if we could have been perfect. He pulled a couple of us who were pretty dope. Enoch, Elijah, riding out. Chapter 18. Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, began to rule over Judah in the 3rd year of King Hoshea's reign in Israel. He was 25 when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. Not bad. His mother was Abijah, the daughter of Zechariah. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestor David had done. He removed the pagan shrines, finally smashed the sacred pillars, 'bout time, and cut down the Asherah poles, toss 'em on the fire, and burn the shit out of 'em. He broke up the bronze serpents that Moses had made because the people of Israel had been offering sacrifices to it. The bronze serpent was called Nehushtan. Hezekiah trusted in the Lord, the God of Israel. There was no one like him among all the kings of Judah, either before or after his time. He remained faithful to the Lord in everything and carefully obeyed all the commands the Lord had given Moses. And yet, this is the first time ever in my whole lifetime. I mean, I've heard of the regales and tales of the loyalty of King David. I've read the Psalms of King David. I've never heard of Hezekiah before. And now I want to read the history of the book of the kings of Israel, or the book of the history of the kings of Israel, just to read Hezekiah's story. So the Lord was with him, and Hezekiah was successful in everything he did. He revolted against the king of Assyria and refused to pay tribute. He also conquered the Philistines as far distant as Gaza and its territory, from the smallest outpost to the largest walled city. During the 4th year of Hezekiah's reign, which was the 7th year of the reign of King Hoshea's, the 7th year of King Hoshea's reign in Israel, King Shalmaneser of Assyria attacked the city of Samaria and began a siege against it. 3 years later, during the 6th year of King Hezekiah's reign and the 9th year of King Hoshea's reign in Israel, Samaria fell. We heard about this a little bit ago. At that time, the king of Assyria exiled the Israelites to Assyria and placed them in colonies in Halah along the banks of the Habor River in Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. For they refused to listen to the Lord their God and obey him. Instead, they violated his covenant, all the laws that Moses, the Lord's servant, had commanded them to obey. In the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, King Sennacherib, these Assyrians have amazing names. Like, I thought the Israelite names were hard to say, but this guy's name is Sennacherib of Assyria, came to attack the fortified towns of Judah and conquered them. King Hezekiah sent this message to the king of Assyria at Lachish: I have done wrong. I will pay whatever tribute money you demand if you will only withdraw. The king of Assyria then demanded a settlement of more than 11 tons of silver and 1 ton of gold. To gather this amount, King Hezekiah used all the silver stored in the temple of the Lord and in the palace treasury. Hezekiah even stripped the gold from the doors of the Lord's temple and from the doorposts he had overlaid with gold, and gave it all to the Assyrian king. Like a bitch! Nevertheless, the king of Assyria sent his commander-in-chief, his field commander, and his chief of staff from Lachish with a huge army to confront King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. Like a bitch! The Assyrians took up a position beside the aqueduct that feeds water into the upper pool, near the road leading to the field where cloth is washed. They summoned King Hezekiah, but the king sent these officials to meet with them: Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator; Shebna, the court secretary; and Joah, son of Asaph, the royal historian. He should have sent somebody with a gun. Then the Assyrian king's chief of staff told them to give this message to Hezekiah. This is what the great king of Assyria says: What are you trusting in that makes you so confident? Do you think that mere words can substitute for military skill and strength? Who are you counting on that you have rebelled against me? On Egypt? If you lean on Egypt, it will be like a reed that splinters beneath your weight and pierces your hand. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, is completely unreliable. Perhaps you say to me, we are trusting in the Lord our God. But isn't he the one who was insulted by Hezekiah? Didn't Hezekiah tear down his shrines and altars and make everyone in Judah and Jerusalem worship only at the altar here in Jerusalem? I'll tell you what. Strike a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria. I will give you 2,000 horses if you can find that many men to ride 'em. With your tiny army, how can you think of challenging even the weakest contingent of my master's troops, even with the help of Egypt's chariots and charioteers? What's more, do you think we have invaded your land without the Lord's direction? Oh, yeah, that God that you might be trusting in? Do you think he didn't send us? The Lord himself told us, attack this land and destroy it. Ooh, if you're trusting in God, bad news, bud. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, Shebna, and Joah said to the Assyrian chief of staff, "Please speak to us in Aramaic, for we understand it well. Don't speak in Hebrew for the people on the wall to hear." But Sennacherib's chief of staff replied, "Do you think my master sent this message only to you and your master? He wants all the people to hear it, for when we put this city under siege, they will suffer along with you. They will be so hungry and thirsty that they will eat their own shit and drink their own urine." It it was phrased a little bit more, a little bit less colorful than that. Then the chief of staff stood and shouted in Hebrew to the people on the wall, "Listen to this message from the great king of Assyria. This is what the king says: Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He will never be able to rescue you from my power. Don't let him fool you into trusting in the Lord by saying, 'The Lord will surely rescue us.' The city will never fall into the hands of the Assyrian king. Don't listen to Hezekiah. These are the terms the king of Assyria is offering: Make peace with me, open the gates and come out, then each of you can continue eating from your own grapevine and fig tree and drinking from your own well. Then I will arrange to take you to another land like this one, a land of grain and new wine, bread and vineyards, olive groves and honey. Choose life instead of death." That's a great sales pitch, bro. Like, don't listen to Hezekiah when he tries to mislead you by saying the Lord will rescue us. Have the gods of any other nations ever saved their people from the king of Assyria? What happened to the gods of Hamath and Arpad? And what about the gods of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Ava? Did any god rescue Samaria from my power? What god of any nation has ever been able to save its people from me? So, what makes you think that the Lord can rescue Jerusalem from my power?" But the people were silent and did not utter a word, because Hezekiah had commanded them, "Do not answer him." Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, the palace administrator, Shebna, the court secretary, and Joah, son of Asaph, the royal historian, went back to Hezekiah. They tore their clothes in despair, and they went in to see the king and told him what the Assyrian chief of staff had indeed said. And what he said is, "I need to get up and stretch. We've been here for an hour. We're about halfway. A little bit, maybe a little bit more than. I'll be back in some number of minutes. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, as the thing says, just wait." If you're starting to feel like you're getting a little fatigued, go outside and stick your face in the snow. That'll get you every time. We back. We back. We back. We back. Where did we left off? Chapter 19? I think it's chapter 19. When King Hezekiah heard their report, he tore his clothes and put on burlap and went into the temple of the Lord. And he sent Eliakim the palace administrator, Shebna the court secretary, and the leading priests, all dressed in burlap, to the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz. They told him, "This is what King Hezekiah says. Today is a day of trouble, insults, and disgrace. It is like when a child is ready to be born, but the mother has no strength to deliver the baby. But perhaps the Lord your God has heard the Assyrian chief of staff, sent by the king to defy the living God, and will punish him for his words. Oh, pray for those of us who are left." After King Hezekiah's officials delivered the king's message to Isaiah the prophet, the prophet replied, "Say to your master, this is what the Lord says. Do not be disturbed by this blasphemous speech against me from the Assyrian king's messengers. Listen, I myself will move against him, and the king will receive a message that is needed at home. So he will return. Oh no, the king will receive a message that he is needed at home." I should learn to read. That would give context, better context. "So he will return to his land, where I will have him killed with a sword." Meanwhile, the Assyrian chief of staff left Jerusalem and went to consult the king of Assyria, who had left Lachish and was attacking Libnah. Soon afterward, King Sennacherib received word that King Tirhakah of Ethiopia was leading an army to fight against him. Before leaving to meet the attack, he sent messengers back to Hezekiah in Jerusalem with this message. "This message is for King Hezekiah of Judah. Don't let your God, in whom you trust, deceive you with promises that Jerusalem will not be captured by the king of Assyria. You know perfectly well what the kings of Assyria have done wherever they have gone. They have completely destroyed everyone who stood in their way. Why should you be any different? Have the gods of other nations rescued them? Such nations as Gozan, Haran, Rezeph, and the people of Eden who were in Tel Assar? My predecessors destroyed them all. What happened to the king of Hamath and the king of Arpad? What happened to the king of Sepharvaim, Hena, and Ivah?" After Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers and read it, he went up to the Lord's temple and spread it out before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed this prayer before the Lord: "O Lord God of Israel, you are enthroned between the mighty cherubim. You alone are God of all the kingdoms of the earth. You alone created the heavens and the earth. Bend down, O Lord, and listen. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. Listen to Sennacherib's words of defiance against the living God. It is true, Lord, that the kings of Assyria have destroyed all these nations, and they have thrown the gods of these nations into the fire and burned them. But of course the Assyrians could destroy them. They were not gods at all, only idols of wood and stone shaped by human hands. Now, O Lord, our God, rescue us from his power, then all the kingdoms of the earth will know that you alone, O Lord, are God. Then Isaiah, son of Amoz, sent this message to Hezekiah. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I have heard your prayer about King Sennacherib of Assyria, and the Lord has spoken this word against him. The virgin daughter of Zion despises you and laughs at you. The daughter of Jerusalem shakes her head in derision as you flee. Whom have you been defying and ridiculing? Against whom did you raise your voice? At whom did you look with such haughty eyes? It was the Holy One of Israel. By your messengers you have defied the Lord. You have said, with my many chariots I have conquered the highest mountains. Yes, the remotest peaks of Lebanon. I have cut down its tallest cedars and its finest cypress trees. I have reached its farthest corners and have explored its deepest forests. I have dug wells in many foreign lands and refreshed myself with their water. With the sole of my foot I stopped up all the rivers of Egypt. But have you not heard? I decided this long ago. Long ago I planned it, and now I am making it happen. I planned for you to crush fortified cities into heaps of rubble. That is why their people have so little power and are so frightened and confused. They are as weak as grass, as easily trampled as tender green shoots. They are like grass sprouting on a housetop, scorched before it can grow lush and tall. But I know you well, where you stay and when you come and go. I know the way you have raged against me, and because of your raging against me and your arrogance, which I have heard for myself, I will put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth. I will make you return by the same road which you came. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, here is the proof that what I say is true. This year you will eat only what grows up by itself, and next year you will eat what springs up from that. But in the third year you will plant crops and harvest them. You will tend vineyards and eat their fruit. And you who are left in Judah, who have escaped the ravages of the siege, will put roots down in your own soil and will grow up and flourish. For a remnant of my people will spread out from Jerusalem, a group of survivors from Mount Zion. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen. And this is what the Lord says about the king of Assyria. His armies will not enter Jerusalem. They will not even shoot an arrow at it. They will not march outside its gates with their shields, nor build banks of earth against its walls. The king will return to his own country by the same road which he came. He will not enter this city, says the Lord. For my own honor and for the sake of my servant David, I will defend this city and protect it. That night, the angel of the Lord went out to the Assyrian camp and killed 185,000 Assyrian soldiers. Just a little bit of light work for the angel of the Lord. When the surviving Assyrians woke up the next morning, they found corpses everywhere. Then King Sennacherib of Assyria broke camp and returned to his own land. He went home to his capital of Nineveh and stayed there. One day, while he was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, his sons Adremelech and Sharezer killed him with their swords. Ooh, didn't the Lord promise that one? I feel like that was the Lord's promised. Then they escaped to the land of Ararat, and another son, Esarhaddon, became the next king of Assyria. See, these other two guys, Adramelech and Sharezer, did not have cool enough names to become king, so they had to flee. So this guy, Esarhaddon, became the next king, because his name's cooler than theirs. Chapter 20. About that time, Hezekiah became deathly ill, and the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz, went to visit him. He gave the king this message. This is what the Lord says. Set your affairs in order, for you are going to die. You're not going to recover from this illness. When Hezekiah heard this, he turned his face to the wall and prayed to the Lord. Remember, O Lord, how I have always been faithful to you and have served you single-mindedly, always doing what pleases you. Then he broke down and wept bitterly. But before Isaiah had left the middle courtyard, this message came to him from the Lord. Go back to Hezekiah, the leader of my people. Tell him, this is what the Lord, the God of your ancestor David, says. I have heard your prayer and seen your tears. I will heal you, and 3 days from now you will get out of bed and go to the temple of the Lord. I'll add 15 years to your life, and I will rescue you and this city from the king of Assyria. I will defend this city for my own honor and for the sake of my servant David. Then Isaiah said, make an ointment from figs. So Hezekiah's servant spread the ointment over the boil, and Hezekiah recovered. Meanwhile, Hezekiah had said to Isaiah, what sign will the Lord give to prove that he will heal me, and I will go to the temple of the Lord 3 days from now? Isaiah replied, this is the sign from the Lord to prove that he will do as he promised. Would you like the shadow on the sundial to go forward 10 steps or back 10 steps? The shadow always moves forward, Hezekiah replied, so that would be easy. Make it go back 10 steps instead. So Isaiah the prophet asked the Lord to do this, and he caused the shadow to move 10 steps backwards on the sundial of Ahaz. Soon after this, Merodach Baladan, son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent Hezekiah his best wishes and a gift, for he had heard that Hezekiah had been very sick. Hezekiah received the Babylonian envoys and showed them everything in his treasure houses: the silver, the gold, the spices, the aromatic oils. He also took them to see his armory and showed them everything in his royal treasuries. There was nothing in the palace or kingdom that Hezekiah did not show them. This sounds like you're getting cased. Then Isaiah the prophet went to King Hezekiah and asked him, "What did those men want, and where were they from?" Hezekiah replied, "They came from the distant land of Babylon." "What did they see in your palace?" Isaiah asked. "They saw everything," Hezekiah replied. "I showed them everything I own, all my royal treasuries." You sound like Hezekiah the idiot. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Listen to this message from the Lord. The time is coming when everything in your palace, all your treasures stored up by your ancestors until now, will be carried off to Babylon, you idiot. Nothing will be left, says the Lord. Some of your very own sons will be taken away into exile. They will become eunuchs who will serve in the palace of Babylon's king." Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "This message you have given me from the Lord is good." For the king was thinking, "At least there will be peace and security during my lifetime." The rest of the events in Hezekiah's reign, including the extent of his power and how he built a pool and dug a tunnel to bring water into the city, are recorded in the book History Kings Judah. Hezekiah died, and his son Manasseh became the next king. Chapter 21. Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 55 years. New world record! His mother was Hephzibah. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, following the detestable practices of the pagan nations that the Lord had driven from the land ahead of the Israelites. He rebuilt the pagan shrines his father Hezekiah had destroyed. He constructed altars for Baal and set up an Asherah pole, just as King Ahab of Israel had done. He also bowed before all the powers of the heavens and worshipped them. He built pagan altars in the temple of the Lord, the place where the Lord had said, "My name will remain in Jerusalem forever." He built these altars for all the powers of the heavens in both courtyards of the Lord's temple. Manasseh also sacrificed his own son in the fire. He practiced sorcery and divination and consulted with mediums and psychics. He did much that was evil in the Lord's sight, arousing his anger. Manasseh even made a carved image of Asherah and set it up in the temple, the very place where the Lord had told David and his son Solomon, "My name will be honored forever in this temple and in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen from among all the tribes of Israel. If the Israelites will be careful to obey my commands, all the laws my servant Moses gave them, I will not send them into exile from this land that I gave their ancestors." But the people refused to listen, and Manasseh led them to do even more evil than the pagan nations that the Lord had destroyed when the people of Israel entered the land. Then the Lord said through his servants the prophets, King Manasseh of Judah has done many detestable things. He is even more wicked than the Amorites who lived in this land before Israel. He has caused the people of Judah to sin with his idols. So this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I will bring such disaster on Jerusalem and Judah that the ears of those who hear about it will tingle with horror. I will judge Jerusalem by the same standard I used for Samaria and by the same measure I used for the family of Ahab. I will wipe away the people of Jerusalem as one wipes a dish and turns it upside down. Then I will reject even the remnant of my own people who are left, and I will hand them over as plunder for their enemies. For they have done great evil in my sight, and have angered me ever since their ancestors came out of Egypt. Manasseh also murdered many innocent people until Jerusalem was filled from one end to the other with innocent blood. This was in addition to the sin that he caused the people of Judah to commit, leading them to do evil in the Lord's sight. The rest of the events in Manasseh's reign and everything he did, including the sins he committed, are recorded. I mean, if you have to point out that the sins he committed are recorded here, that's gotta be like an especially egregious list. Recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. When Manasseh died, he was buried in the palace garden, the garden of Uzzah. Then his son Amon became the next king. Amon was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 2 years. He a congressman king. His mother was Meshullemeth, the daughter of Haruz from Jotbah. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Manasseh had done. He followed the example of his father, worshipping the same idols his father worshipped. He abandoned the Lord, the God of his ancestors, and refused to follow the Lord's way. Then Amon's own officials conspired against him and assassinated him in his palace. But the people of the land killed all those who had conspired against King Amon, and they made his son Josiah the next king. The rest of the events in Amon's reign and what he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. He was buried in his tomb in the garden of Uzzah. Then his son Josiah became the next king. This is a lot of kings. So many kings, so few pages. It's a lot. Chapter 22. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. His mother was Jedidah, the daughter of Adiah from Bozkath. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight and followed the example of his ancestor David. He did not turn away from doing what was right. In the 18th year of his reign, King Josiah sent Shaphan, son of Azaliah and grandson of Meshullam, the court secretary, to the temple of the Lord. He told him, "Go to Hilkiah the high priest and have him count the money the gatekeepers have collected from the people at the Lord's temple. Entrust this money to the men assigned to supervise the restoration of the Lord's temple. Then they can use it to pay workers to repair the temple. They will need to hire carpenters, builders, and masons, and also have them buy the timber and finished stone needed to repair the temple, but don't require the construction supervisors to keep account of the money they receive, for they are honest and trustworthy men. Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the court secretary, I have found the book of the law in the Lord's temple. Then Hilkiah gave the scroll to Shaphan, and he read it. Shaphan went to the king and reported, Your officials have turned over the money collected at the temple of the Lord to the workers and supervisors at the temple. Shaphan also told the king, Hilkiah the priest has given me a scroll. So Shaphan read it to the king. When the king heard what was written in the book of the law, he tore his clothes in despair. Then he gave these orders to Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam, son of Shaphan, Achbor, son of Micaiah, and Shaphan the court secretary, and Asaiah, the king's personal advisor. That's a long list of people. Go to the temple and speak to the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judah. Inquire about the words written in this scroll that has been found. Oh, y'all just heard the book of the law of the Lord that Moses gave, like, for the first time? Like, you don't know about this? Oh my, how far Israel has fallen away from the Lord's favor. For the Lord's great anger is burning against us because our ancestors have not obeyed the words in this scroll. Not even a little bit. We have not been doing everything it says we must do. In fact, you're doing a whole bunch of shit it says never ever do. So Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam, Achbor, Shaphan, and Asaiah went to the new quarter of Jerusalem to consult with the prophet Huldah. She was the wife of Shallum, son of Tikvah, son of Harhas, the keeper of the temple wardrobe. She said to them, The Lord, the God of Israel, has spoken. Go back and tell the man who sent you, this is what the Lord says. I am going to bring disaster on this city and its people. All the words written in the scroll that the king of Judah has read will come true, for my people have abandoned me and offered sacrifices to pagan gods. I'm very angry with them for everything they have done. My anger will burn against this place, and it will not be quenched. But go to the king of Judah who sent you to seek the Lord, and tell him, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says concerning the message you have just heard. You were sorry and humbled yourself before the Lord when you heard what I said against this city and its people, that this land would be cursed and become desolate. You tore your clothing in despair and wept before me in repentance, and I indeed have heard you, says the Lord. So I will not send the promised disaster until after you have died and been buried in peace. You will not see the disaster I am going to bring on this city. So they took her message back to the king. Chapter 23. Then the king summoned all the elders of Judah and Jerusalem. And the king went up to the temple of the Lord with all the people of Judah and Jerusalem, along with the priests and the prophets, all the people from the least to the greatest. There the king read to them the entire book of the covenant that had been found in the Lord's temple. The king took his place of authority beside the pillar and renewed the covenant in the Lord's presence. He pledged to obey the Lord by keeping all his commands, laws, and decrees with all his heart and soul. In this way, he confirmed all the terms written in the scroll, and all the people pledged themselves to the covenant. Then the king instructed Hilkiah the high priest and the priests of the second rank and the temple gatekeepers to remove from the Lord's temple all the articles that were used to worship Baal, Asherah, and all the powers of the heavens. The king had all these things burned outside Jerusalem on the terraces of the Kidron Valley, and he carried the ashes away to Bethel. He did away with the idolatrous priests who had been appointed by the previous kings of Judah, for they had offered sacrifices at the pagan shrines throughout Judah and even in the vicinity of Jerusalem. They had offered sacrifices to Baal, to the sun, the moon, the constellations, and to all the powers of the heavens. The king removed the Asherah pole from the Lord's temple and took it outside Jerusalem to the Kidron Valley, where he burned it. Josiah for the W on that one. Then he ground the ashes of the pole to dust and threw the dust over the graves of the people. I don't know about all that. That might have been a lot. He also tore down the living quarters of the male and female shrine prostitutes that were inside the temple of the Lord, where the women wove coverings for the Asherah pole. Josiah brought to Jerusalem all the priests who were living in other towns of Judah. He also defiled the pagan shrines where they had offered sacrifices. All the way from Geba to Beersheba, he destroyed the shrines at the entrance of the gate of Joshua, the governor of Jerusalem. This gate was located to the left of the city gate as one enters the city. The priests who had served at the pagan shrines were not allowed to serve at the Lord's altar in Jerusalem, but they were allowed to eat unleavened bread with the other priests. Then the king defiled the altar of Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom, so no one could ever again use it to sacrifice a son or daughter in the fire as an offering to Moloch. He removed from the entrance of the Lord's temple the horse statues that the former kings of Judah had dedicated to the sun. They were near the quarters of Nathan Melech, the eunuch and officer of the court. The king also burned the chariots dedicated to the sun. Josiah tore down the altars that the kings of Judah had built on the palace roof above the upper room of Ahaz. They destroyed the altars that Manasseh had built in the two courtyards of the Lord's temple. He smashed them to bits and scattered the pieces in the Kidron Valley. The king also desecrated the pagan shrines east of Jerusalem. To the south of the Mount of Corruption, where King Solomon of Israel had built shrines for Ashtoreth, the detestable goddess of the Sidonians, and for Chemosh, the detestable god of the Moabites, and for Moloch, the vile god of the Ammonites. He smashed the sacred pillars and cut down the Asherah poles. Then he desecrated these places by scattering human bones over them. The king also tore down the altar at Bethel, the pagan shrine that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had made when he caused Israel to sin. So literally went all the way back to the beginning of all this bullshit and destroyed the very thing that started it all. Finally, he burned down the shrine and ground it to dust, and he burned the Asherah pole. Then Josiah turned around and noticed several tombs in the side of the hill. He ordered that the bones be brought out, and he burned them on the altar at Bethel to desecrate it. This happened just as the Lord had promised through the man of God when Jeroboam stood beside the altar at the festival. Then Josiah turned and looked up at the tomb of the man of God who had predicted these things. "What is that monument over there?" Josiah asked. And the people of the town told him, "It is the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah and predicted the very things that you have just done to the altar at Bethel." Josiah replied, "Leave it alone. Do not disturb his bones." So they did not burn his bones or those of the old prophet from Samaria. Gotta just not disturb the graves of the prophets, y'all. Then Josiah demolished all the buildings at the pagan shrines in the towns of Samaria, just as he had done at Bethel. They had been built up by the various kings of Israel and had made the Lord very angry. He executed the priests of the pagan shrines on their own altars, and he burned human bones on the altars to desecrate them. Finally, he went home to Jerusalem, because that was enough destroying of pagan shit for one day. King Josiah then issued this order to all the people: "You must celebrate the Passover to the Lord your God as required in the book of the covenant." There had not been a Passover celebration like that since the time when the judges ruled in Israel, nor throughout all the years of the kings of Israel and Judah. But in the 18th year of King Josiah's reign, the Passover to the Lord was the Passover was celebrated to the Lord in Jerusalem. Oh, Josiah, you overachiever. Josiah also got rid of the mediums and psychics, the household gods, the idols, and every other kind of detestable practice, both in Jerusalem and throughout the land of Judah. He did this in obedience to the laws written in the scroll that Hilkiah the priest had found in the Lord's temple. Never before had there been a king like Josiah who turned to the Lord with all his heart and soul and strength, obeying all the laws of Moses. Well, he might be the first king who actually knew all the laws of Moses, since they just found the book of the law in the Lord's temple, which is where you would think you would find that. It might help if you had a few more copies, though. And there has never been a king like him since. Even so, the Lord was very angry with Judah because of all the wicked things Manasseh had done to provoke him. For the Lord said, "I will also banish Judah from my presence, just as I have banished Israel. And I will reject my chosen city of Jerusalem and the temple where my name was to be honored." The rest of the events in Josiah's reign and all his deeds are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. While Josiah was king, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went to the Euphrates River to help the king of Assyria. King Josiah and his army marched out to fight him, but King Necho killed him when they met at Megiddo. Josiah's officers took his body back in a chariot from Megiddo to Jerusalem and buried him in his own tomb. Then the people of the land anointed Josiah's son Jehoahaz and made him the next king. What up, Castro? Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. His mother was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah from Libnah. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestors did do. Pharaoh Necho put Jehoahaz in prison at Riblah in the land of Hamath to prevent him from ruling in Jerusalem. He also demanded that Judah pay 7,500 pounds of silver and 75 pounds of gold as tribute. Pharaoh Necho then installed Eliakim, another of Josiah's sons, to reign in place of his father, and he changed Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim. Jehoahaz was taken to Egypt as a prisoner, where he died. In order to get the silver and gold demanded as tribute by Pharaoh Necho, Jehoiakim collected a tax from the people of Judah, requiring them to pay in proportion to their wealth. Jehoiakim was 25 when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. His mother was Zebidah, the daughter of Pedaiah from Ramah. He did evil in the Lord's sight, just as his ancestors had done. Hey, everybody's here tonight. Hi, Mousin. Now that I have the internet again, I have more to catch up on. I mean, I hate to say it, we have been steadily just grinding right through these. That being said, this seems like a decent time to mention that it's been kind of a long week so far. Each show has been at least, we're pretty close to 2 hours, if not longer. I'm on the fence on whether or not I'm going to start Chronicles tomorrow night, or I might just take the day off. I know there's a lot of people who love the Bible from the beginning series. I love doing it. But sometimes a break is helpful, it's necessary, it's healthy, it's all good in the hood. So if you don't see me scheduled for tomorrow, don't panic. I will be back Monday. At the latest. At the latest. But we'll see how I feel tomorrow. Because sometimes, like, I wake up in the morning and I don't want to do this stream. But by the time the stream starts, like, I can't wait to get into it. So we will see how that goes. Anywho, good to see you, Mousy. Sucks that you had a almost 2 day outage. Hopefully it wasn't all your power, just the internet. And it's glad you're back. We is glad you're back. And I'm glad I have your support. You are now the second person who has said go ahead and take a day off. I mean, it would probably be good for Heidi, too, who doesn't seem to be here tonight. But Heidi's probably on catch-up duty and is probably 3 or 4 days behind. At least I always assume that she's at least 2 or 3 days behind. So maybe we'll take tomorrow off and see everybody can get some catch-up time in. Because this does, like... Whew. It goes quick. Yeah. Anywho, thank you for giving me a perfect segue to go ahead and address that issue, Mousy. And oh, Puffer is on board. Like everybody is calling for a day off. All right, fine. It's settled. If my people who are the like, I mean, I do this because I needed to read this, and it's more fun to read it with all of you. But if my people are saying we can take a day off, then we will have a day off. That actually frees up a lot of things. So I appreciate it. We will come back Monday, and I will probably do something fun this weekend. I said that last weekend too, and I didn't do nothing. I just lazied it up big time. But what are you gonna do? Don't make too many promises. That's why I like to say a lot of maybes and a lot of probablys, 'cause we'll see. Anywho, chapter 24. During Jehoiakim's reign, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon invaded the land of Judah. Jehoiakim surrendered and paid him tribute for 3 years, but then rebelled. Then the Lord sent bands of Babylonian, Aramaean, Moabite, and Ammonite raiders against Judah to destroy it just as the Lord had promised through his prophets. These disasters happened to Judah because of the Lord's command. He has decided to banish Judah from his presence because of the many sins of Manasseh, who had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord would not forgive this. The rest of the events in Jehoiakim's reign and all his deeds are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. When Jehoiakim died, his son Jehoiachin became the next king. The king of Egypt did not venture out of his country after that, for the king of Babylon captured the entire area formerly claimed by Egypt, from the brook of Egypt to the Euphrates River. Jehoiachin was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. His mother was Nehushta, the daughter of Elnathan from Jerusalem. Jehoiachin did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as his father had done. During Jehoiachin's reign, the officers of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came up against Jerusalem and besieged it. Nebuchadnezzar himself arrived at the city during the siege. Then King Jehoiachin, along with the queen mother, his advisors, his commanders, his officials, surrendered to the Babylonians. In the 8th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he took Jehoiachin prisoner. As the Lord had said beforehand, Nebuchadnezzar carried away all the treasures from the Lord's temple and the royal palace. He stripped away all the gold objects that the king Solomon of Israel had placed in the temple. King Nebuchadnezzar took all of Jerusalem captive, including all the commanders and the best of the soldiers, craftsmen, and artisans, 10,000 in all. Only the poorest people were left in the land. Nebuchadnezzar led King Jehoiachin away as a captive to Babylon, along with the queen mother, his wives and officials, and all Jerusalem's elite. He also exiled 7,000 of the best troops and 1,000 craftsmen and artisans, all of whom were strong and fit for war. Then the king of Babylon installed Mattaniah, Jehoiachin's uncle, as the next king, and he changed Mattaniah's name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 11 years. His mother was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah from Libnah. But Zedekiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Jehoiakim had done. These things happened because of the Lord's anger against the people of Jerusalem and Judah, until he finally banished them from his presence and into exile. Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. Chapter 25. So, on January 15th, during the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon led his entire army against Jerusalem. They surrounded the city and built siege ramps against its walls. Jerusalem was kept under siege until the 11th year of King Zedekiah's reign. By July 18, in the 11th year of Zedekiah's reign, the famine in the city had become very severe, and the last of the food was entirely gone. Then a section of the city wall was broken down. Since the city was surrounded by the Babylonians, the soldiers waited for nightfall and escaped through the gate between the two walls behind the king's garden. Then they headed toward the Jordan Valley. But the Babylonian troops chased the king and overtook him on the plains of Jericho, for his men had all deserted him and scattered. They captured the king and took him to the king of Babylon at Riblah, where they pronounced judgment upon Zedekiah. They made Zedekiah watch as they slaughtered his sons. Then they gouged out Zedekiah's eyes, bound him in bronze chains, and led him away to Babylon. I mean, I can think of some pretty effed stuff because I have a pretty effed imagination. But I'm going to slaughter your sons in front of you, and then I'm going to gouge out your eyes to make sure that's the last thing you ever fucking see, and then I'm going to throw you in chains and keep you alive. That's pretty fucked. That is pretty fucked indeed. Just for the record, on August 14th of that year, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard and an official of the Babylonian king, arrived in Jerusalem. He burned down the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. He destroyed all the important buildings in the city. Then he supervised the entire Babylonian army as they tore down the walls of Jerusalem on every side. Then Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took as exiles the rest of the people who remained in the city, the defectors who had declared their allegiance to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the population. But the captain of the guard allowed some of the poorest people to stay behind to care for the vineyards and fields. The Babylonians broke up the bronze pillars in front of the Lord's temple, the bronze water carts, and the great bronze basin called the sea, and they carried all the bronze away to Babylon. They also took all the ash buckets, shovels, lamp snuffers, ladles, and all the other bronze articles used for making sacrifices at the temple. The captain of the guard also took the incense burners and basins and all the other articles made of pure gold or silver. The weight of the bronze from the two pillars, the sea, and the water carts was too great to be measured, as it was the first time they built these things and couldn't measure them. These things had been made for the Lord's temple in the days of Solomon. Each of the pillars was 27 feet tall. The bronze cap on the top of each pillar was 7.5 feet high and was decorated with a network of bronze pomegranates all the way around. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took with him as prisoners Sariah the high priest, Zephaniah the priest of the second rank, and the 3 chief gatekeepers. And from among the people still hiding in the city, he took an officer who had been in charge of the Judean army, 5 of the king's personal advisers, the army commander's chief secretary, who was in charge of recruitment, and 60 other citizens. Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took them all to the king of Babylon at Riblah. And there, at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, the king of Babylon had them all put to death. So the people of Judah were sent into exile from their land, just as the Lord had promised them they would. Then King Nebuchadnezzar appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, and grandson of Shaphan, as governor over the people he had left in Judah. When all the army commanders and their men learned that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah as governor, they went to see him at Mizpah. These included Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, Johanan, son of Kareah, Sariah, son of Tanhumeth, the Netophathite, Jezaniah, son of the Maccathite, and all their men. Gedaliah vowed to them that the Babylonian officials meant them no harm. Don't be afraid of them. Live in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and all will go well for you, he promised. But in mid-autumn of that year, Ishmael, son of Nethaniah and grandson of Elishama, who was a member of the royal family, went to Mizpah with 10 men and killed Gedaliah. He also killed all the Judeans and Babylonians who were with him at Mizpah. Then all the people of Judah, from the least to the greatest, as well as the army commanders, fled in panic to Egypt, for they were afraid of what the Babylonians would do to them. I'd be afraid too, 'cause y'all are kind of bitch-made. In the 37th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin of Judah, evil Merodach ascended to the Babylonian throne. This dude's name is Evil. Evil Merodach. He was kind to Jehoiachin and released him from prison on April 2nd that year. So his name is Evil, but he does good. He's a kind man who is named Evil. He spoke kindly to Jehoiachin and gave him a higher place than all the other exiled kings in Babylon. He supplied Jehoiachin with new clothes to replace his prison garb and allowed him to dine in the king's presence for the rest of his life. So the king gave him a regular food allowance as long as he lived. And that, my friends, was Second Kings. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. Some of the names in there were just absolutely absurd, but I've been saying that since Genesis, and I'm not going to stop. Because these people had better names than we do. Uh, Anywho, thank you all for coming. I guess by almost unanimous consensus, we will pick up First Chronicles. We'll probably be back in the regular time slot, 9 p.m. Monday. So absolutely be there or be square. I'm not sure what I might or might not do this weekend. If you're not subscribed to my Rumble channel and my YouTube channel, and you're interested in the other things I do that are not the Bible, you should probably subscribe. Right now, they're neck and neck. They're in a race to 200, and I think one's at 194 and the other's at 196. I can't tell you which one's which. You'll have to go look yourself. But until Monday, if I don't see you this weekend doing other things, or if you don't stop by Divinity and Squaw Bob's Bible study on Saturday, which you can usually find me in the crowd there because I love their conversations. They're great. I'll catch you back here Monday night. Until then, I love you all. Stay prayed up. Stay blessed, and I hope the Lord stays with you all until I see you again. Yeah, thank you. Puffer, you have a wonderful evening too. And yeah, like I said, I'll see you guys Monday. I hope you're all well till then. Adios. Night Darth. Night Mousy. Night Darth. Night Mousy. Night Puffer. Cat. I don't know if you fell asleep or not, but good night to you. Castro. Div. Down was here. Who else we got? I think that's about it. Y'all are the best. Thank you all for coming, and I'll see you next week.